When describing the mitzvah of appointing a king upon Klal Yisrael, in this week's Seder of Shoftim, the pasuk says, you are to place the king upon yourself. Asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha, that will be chosen by God. Mikerev achecha, from the midst of your brothers. Tosim alecha melech, you are to place upon yourselves the king. Osucha laseh alecha ish nachri, you're not permitted to appoint an individual who is not Jewish in that position. Asher lo achichahu. And obviously, if we are being clearly instructed that we are not permitted to choose a non-Jew for the appointment as king, then why the need for the pasuk to state mikerev achecha? And moreover, since the pasuk began with so tosim alecha melech, you are to place upon yourselves the king, why is there a need later in the pasuk to restate tosim alecha melech? And the Ben Ish Chai has a most interesting comment to explain why the need for the words mikerev achecha, from the midst of your brothers. And with that explanation, I believe we are afforded volumes, not only in understanding the appointment of a king, but the way that we should be raising our children. The Ben Ish Chai explains mikerev achecha refers not simply to from the midst of your brothers, but rather from the middle shevet. Which is the middle shevet of Klal Yisrael, where there were 4 imahos. There were 4 mothers. 3 of them only had 2 sons, and therefore there was no middle child. Leah had 6 sons: Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zebulun. Levi has no nachala within Klal Yisrael. Indeed, it is re-mentioned immediately after this parsha of Malchus in the Seder of Shoftim. Therefore, says the Ben Ish Chai, remove the shevet of Levi. And if you remove the shevet of Levi from the children of Leah, then you have Reuven, Shimon, Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zebulun. And indeed, Yehuda is the middle child. And Yehuda, in fact, being the middle child, as it were, of Leah, was chosen clearly to be the shevet from which the Davidic dynasty, the dynasty of Malchus, of kingship, would issue forth within Klal Yisrael. And why is there a need for kingship to come from the middle child? Well, it's interesting. Is it not so? All of us know as parents, Baruch Hashem, that the first child is a zainsen, the first child could do no wrong. The first child is a wonder. Every step that the child takes, the first word that the child states, the first song that the child sings, the first question that is raised by the child. Why, the child, the first child in every home is brilliant. And the last child in every home is just delicious. Coddled, babied, the chosen one, and can do no wrong. But the middle child, well, the middle child catches short shrift. There are far less pictures of the middle child. The first child, there are albums. The baby, oh, he's so cute. She's so adorable. Take another picture. The middle child, less so. And what are the expectations of the middle child? Also often less so. For the first child is taught anything and everything by his or her parent. The youngest child, its last licks. It's the bottom inning. So all energies and efforts that remain within the ability and the purview of the parent is invested within that youngest child. The middle child or middle children, at times, many times, less so. Says the pasuk, when you choose for yourself a king, mikerev achecha, he is to be from the shevet of Yehuda, the middle shevet, as it were. Not from Reuven, because whereas it's true that Reuven was Bachori Ata Kochi Bereshis Oni, the first child of Yaakov Avinu, but he was, perhaps, given that he was the first child, rather impetuous, and therefore lost the Bachora. And the youngest child, Binyamin, is Ben Oni and Ben Yamini, but he's the last child. And indeed, doesn't necessarily rise to the occasion. But the middle child, why, from that middle child, if he looks at the Bachar and sees what should be copied and emulated and what should be eschewed and discarded. If he looks at the youngest child and notes what should be embraced and what should be distanced from, why then that middle child can achieve what? Nothing less than malchus, than kingship itself. And lest one think that because he's a middle child, that we don't have to afford him quite the respect that we would afford the oldest, or quite the babying or treatment that we would afford the youngest. Som Tosim Alecha Melech, not once, but Tosim Alecha Melech twice. Shetehei E Moso Alecha, for indeed he will have earned his stripes and is being chosen by the Borei Olam. For he will have learned from the mishaps and the unwise judgments of the older brother or brothers. And he will have learned what not to do from the youngest and younger siblings. And that child, why, that child will be ready to lead the people of Israel in battle, to govern the entity of Klal Yisrael, and indeed, to build the Beis HaMikdash, to restore the Beis HaMikdash, and take us in to the time of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Have a wonderful show.